Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Gig Harbor City Council meeting of Monday, August 8th, 2022. The time is 5:31 p.m. and I will turn it over to our city clerk, Josh Stecker, for a roll call.
Councilmember Barber.
Here.
Councilmember Denson.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Likens is excused this evening. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Storsett.
Here.
And Councilmember Wook.
Here.
We have 6 present this evening.
Okay, thank you. Would you all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Before we begin this council meeting, we would like to recognize that we are gathered on not only the ancestral and traditional lands of the Squabosh Band of the Puyallup Tribe of Indians, but also on the site of one of the largest and longest standing historic villages of the people, the original inhabitants of the Gig Harbor area. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I move to pass the consent agenda.
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Council. We have a couple of presentations this evening, the first of which is a proclamation for Waterfront Farmers Market Week. And we have Heidi Grilling here with us from the Downtown Waterfront Alliance. Good evening, Heidi. It's so good to see your face, and
it's good to see you
thanks
as
for
well.
joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. I have a few words about why Farmers Market Week is important.
Absolutely, go for it.
So we're really excited to celebrate Farmers Market, National Farmers Market Week this week. As part of National Farmers Market Week, Mayor Markley is going to be doing a proclamation that it is also Waterfront Farmers Market Week in Gig Harbor this week. And so we are very thankful, Mayor Markley, and we're really, truly grateful to the city's support of our market. It's a great partnership that we value very highly. So National Farmers Market Week is an annual celebration of farmers markets across the country that is coordinated by the Farmers Market Coalition. And that is a member-based nonprofit organization that supports farmers markets nationwide and provides us with training, technical assistance, and network building. And this year, the FMC campaign is centered around the essential role that farmers market operators play in our local food system and in developing resilience in communities as hubs for local economies and connections. Since our inaugural year in 2015, the market has been a hub for innovation and community connection, but farmers markets don't just happen. Every week, our farmers, vendors, our sponsors, market staff, teams of volunteers, and our amazing customers show up to make sure that our market continues to serve as that hub for local food and community connection. And what you see each summer Thursday afternoon at Scansey Brothers Park is the product of months and months of hard work. Behind the scenes, right upon completion of the market, all the way till the next season begins, and even through the season, you'll find farmers working their fields and preparing their land, and food processors sourcing local ingredients for their products. And the staff is planning activities and vetting vendors and ensuring licenses and permits are in place. And the list goes on and on. And over the past couple of years, the Waterfront Farmers Market has showcased our resilience in a really rapidly changing world. In the midst of the global pandemic, the market, just like all other small businesses, we adapted to new health and safety regulations, and we continued operations for the farmers, the vendors, and the customers that depend on us. And thankfully, we're now back to having additional activities that we had to curtail due to COVID. So we can again support like local musicians. We have live music each week. We have fun and educational activities for all ages. We provide a special destination for locals and visitors to Gig Harbor to congregate and enjoy the best food and the best scenery that the Pacific Northwest has to offer. And, we've proven to be a small business incubator. We provide one of the only low barrier avenues for farms and food entrepreneurs to have access to direct marketing, product testing, and building a customer base. And so not only do we bring down 2,500 to 3,000 people each Thursday to downtown, but several of our vendors have also been able to grow and open up their own brick and mortar stores in downtown Gig Harbor. So National Farmers Market Week, we encourage you to come down and celebrate with us. We have a special drawing for a farmers market basket in which all the vendors have donated some products. All you have to do is give us your zip code, because we're also doing a zip code survey so we can see where everybody is coming from. And we encourage you to join us, and we're very thankful for everything.
Thank you so much, Heidi. It is so much fun to be back in the full swing of things down there
It
on
is.
Thursdays. And we just thank you all for your hard work and getting that put together and just putting on such a great farmers market every year. So,
Thank you so much.
so it is now my honor to read this proclamation. You can read along with me. Proclamation of the Mayor of the City of Gig Harbor. Whereas Washington State farmers and ranchers provide citizens with access to healthful, locally and regionally produced foods through farmers markets, which are expanding and evolving to accommodate the demand for a diverse array of agricultural products. And whereas farmers markets provide infrastructure to assist in the distribution of farm and value-added products, thereby contributing approximately $9 billion each year to the U.S. economy. And whereas farmers markets serve as significant outlets by which small to medium, new and veteran agricultural producers market their agricultural products, generating revenue that supports the sustainability of family farms and the revitalization of rural communities nationwide. And whereas the City of Gig Harbor recognizes the importance of expanding agricultural marketing opportunities that assist and encourage the next generation of farmers, ranchers, and processors, generate farm income to help stimulate business development and job creation, build community connections through rural and urban linkages. And whereas the Waterfront Farmers Market adds to the economic vitality of Gig Harbor's downtown by attracting visitors and residents to not only the market, but the stores and restaurants along our historic waterfront. Now, therefore, to further awareness of the Waterfront Farmers Market's contributions to Gig Harbor, I, Tracy Markley, Mayor of the City of Gig Harbor, do hereby proclaim the week of August 7th through 13th, 2022 as Waterfront Farmers Market Week in the City of Gig Harbor in conjunction with the observance of National Farmers Market Week. I call upon Gig Harbor citizens to celebrate farmers markets with appropriate observance and activities, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Gig Harbor to be affixed this 8th day of August, 2022.
Tracy,
thank you
thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I have a signed proclamation for you that Laura either has delivered or will be delivering shortly to you.
We will definitely be displaying that this week at the market. Thank you.
You are welcome. Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Gerling. I just wanted to ask if you are still in need of volunteers for the farmers market. And maybe that's something the council members could think about if they've got different groups they're associated with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Councilwoman. I really appreciate that. We have a really unique program that's called the Vendor Organization of the Week. And what that is an organization can provide volunteers for us for our setup and breakdown. Because like I stated, the market doesn't just happen. Somebody has to be there to assure that the tents are going up, the vendors are unloading their things. And so in return for a lot of social media promotion and a booth at the market, that organization would give us volunteers for the day. So we are definitely in need of volunteers, and we do have some spaces open for volunteer organizations of the week. That aside, we love our independent individual volunteers as well. So you can either email me, call us at the office, or even just show up. 10 to 1 is vendor load in and load out, and that is the biggest need for volunteers right now. And then we also have market teardown at between 7 and 8. So if anyone would like to volunteer or knows of anyone that would like to volunteer, we will gladly accept them.
Great. Thank you so much, Heidi, again for being here and for all that you do. And we look forward to
Pleasure.
seeing you for the remainder of the farmers market. I can't believe it's going to wind down soon.
I know,
So
I
sad.
know. 5 markets left, so come down and
Yes.
enjoy.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Have a great night and thank you for
Thanks.
being here.
Bye-bye.
So great. So our second presentation is our annual crime report from our police chief, Kelly Busey.
And good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm hoping everybody can see my screen.
Yes, I think we
Good.
can.
Sorry, while I get it configured here and make you all smaller so I can see it. So yes, I'm here tonight to deliver our 2021 crime statistics. So 2021, and we're already in August, it does take a long time to compile these stats and to proof them. And in fact, we found a few errors at the state level that we corrected before delivering tonight's report. So I'll jump right into it. So first of all, let's a little refresher here. A crime is something that's punishable by incarceration. They can go to jail for, not a traffic infraction or a parking ticket or something like that. The data collected for this report is through our officer reporting system. When a police officer writes a report, this is where it's collected. It's adjusted and corrected by our police administrative staff and sent to South Sound 911, with whom we contract for our dispatch and our records management services. They compile reports and take a snapshot at a certain moment in time of our crime data and send it to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. They configure it into what's called the National Incident-Based Reporting System. So this is so that police departments across the country can report crime data exactly the same. Somebody in Arkansas is reporting it exactly like in the state of Washington. Let me separate the report into Group A and Group B crimes. So Group A crimes are what you think of as our serious felonies generally. Things you see on TV a lot, I like to say it that way. And notice that I put drugs in red here because drugs is going to play a big part in tonight's presentation and add some context to what we're seeing crime-wise. So first of all, we'll talk about our Group A offenses. Group A offenses are further divided into crimes against persons, like an assault, crimes against property, like a theft or vandalism, and crimes against society, which is, like a pornography or an animal crime or something like that. So those are based on and collected by all of the reported crimes. Anything we take a report on, the data comes from that. Group B offenses are the lesser offenses that I'll get into here in a little bit, but those are based on actual arrests. Those are only arrest data. They're a little bit more minor crimes, sometimes come out to be unfounded or things like that. So those are based on arrests. And I'll give you a reminder of that as we move along. But there's 3 significant factors you need to keep in mind tonight when we're talking about our crime stats. The first is what's called the Blake decision. The Blake decision came out in February of last year, and it was by the state Supreme Court, and it was a landmark ruling that ruled our drug possession laws unconstitutional. Within our ranks, we call it the not my pants defense, in which a woman was arrested with drugs in her pocket. And she claimed that during her whole court proceedings and appeals, she never had the opportunity to raise the argument that she didn't know she had the drugs in her pocket. So the state legislature could have very easily corrected this by inserting the word knowingly into our drug possession laws, but they chose not to do that. Instead, they chose to make every drug possession a misdemeanor crime, not a felony. We're talking meth, heroin, fentanyl, all those things. And they prohibited the police from arresting somebody the first 2 times we come in contact with them for drug possession. So instead of taking someone to jail or giving them a citation or summoning them into court, we simply hand them a business card with a referral line and say, boy, we really hope you get some help. And we walk away, we release them at the scene. So that has proven not to be effective. And it also really fuels a lot of our retail theft problems. The second factor is the police reform laws that were passed in the 2021 session. And initially, they were very cumbersome to law enforcement. And the 2 that stand out, first were the use of force laws. So from July 1st through the 2022 legislative session, police were restricted from using virtually any degree of force to handle any crime unless we had probable cause that a specific crime has been committed. That was problematic. Now, keep in mind too that a use of force can be as simple as me taking you by the arm and leading you back into a store from which you've just shoplifted. So we could not even do that. And the criminals learned this. It took them a couple months to figure this out. But it came to the point where we had people walking out of stores carrying merchandise and even telling the officers, I know you can't touch me. So that was really, really some bad law that has thankfully since been corrected in the 2022 session, but it still lingers today. The pursuit law still does linger. They never corrected the pursuit law. We can only chase vehicles in very specific and a very narrow band of violent crimes after we have probable cause that they've committed a crime. Very, very problematic. And it's not that we want to chase every little shoplifter or even a drug possessor, but the threat of that has to be there. Because right now people are waving at us, and I'm not joking about that, waving at us sometimes using just one finger as they drive away from us. So that's something we hope gets addressed in the 2023 session, I think is on our legislative agenda. And finally, COVID still plays a part in this too, because we've been prohibited from booking people into jail since COVID began. Only the most violent offenders, domestic violence arrestees, and somebody arrested for at least their second DUI can go to jail right now. So we have people that we're pulling out of stolen cars, for instance, and we dust them off and we send them down the road. We recover the car, but there's no repercussions, and we hope someday that the prosecutors will summons them downstream. The caseload, as you can imagine, is mounting on the prosecutors. So I imagine those cases are going to get triaged, and a lot of those will go uncharged. We're not taking shoplifters to jail. We're not taking drug offenders to jail. And they're just going out and committing the exact same crimes the next day. So keep those in the back of your mind as we move forward here. So state crime was down 3.7%. How can that be? Well, first of all, our crimes against persons were up statewide 4.1%. Crimes against property and society were down. We're going to come back to the crimes against society. Before we do that, though, I'll tell you that violent crimes showed a troubling spike in their occurrence, and 325 murders in the state, the second year in a row that we've had an increase in murders. Now, how do we get crime down from what we've been talking about, and what I've been giving you in the weekly updates and what you're hearing on the news? It's simply it's a numbers game. Okay, 49% of the crimes against society, a reduction there, is related to drug possession, right? We're not charging those crimes. So from simply a numbers standpoint, the crime rate goes down. Let's zero in on Gig Harbor a little bit. The first thing that I do when I pick up this annual report is I go right to this page that shows Group A offenses, crimes against persons. And I see that, hey, assaults are down. That's a good thing for us. People coming out of COVID, people not as maybe snarky for whatever reason, our assaults are going down, and that's good. But our robberies went up. Now, again, a fairly small statistical sample here, only from 5 to 9, but they went up 80%. That's a little troubling to me. I am happy to say that of those 9 robberies, we cleared them all with arrests. And not only did we arrest them, we cleared cases for other jurisdictions that were looking for, like serial bank robbers or convenience store robbers. So did some really good work there. Even though the number is up, we cleared all of those cases. Crimes against property. Theft remains our big problem here, retail theft leading the way. Now, these numbers aren't as startling as you might think, but again, the law changed in July 1st, and it took the criminals a couple of months to figure out that they're going to get away with all these theft things. And word travels fast. They use the same lingo on the street. When we do capture them, they'll ask if they're going to be cited and released, right? They know they're not going to jail. But you'll see that the numbers are going to go up. Still our number 1 crime. I'll tell you how we're addressing that here in just a little bit. Fraud went way down, but that's because in 2020, we had the employment security at the state level, the state employment security office, their database was compromised, and a lot of people were victims of fraud. So we took those reports in 2020. So that's why that fraud number went down so much. Motor vehicle theft is going crazy. Spoiler, 2022, that number is going to be into the triple digits, I fear. We're taking as many as 3 stolen cars a day That used to be a yearly total for us. So stolen cars are going crazy, again, with very little or risk of deterrence. Stolen property offenses, however, is kind of a mixed bag. That's a big number, almost 60%, but that also tells us that we're capturing people. This is somebody that has stolen property on them, or we can trace to stolen property. So yes, people might be stealing stuff and we get our own stuff back, but we're recovering stuff from other jurisdictions too. So there's a mixed message with that number. Crimes against society, right there, drugs. In raw numbers, what are we down? 43 reported crimes simply due to the drug laws. And I'm telling you, our officers are contacting people daily in possession of mostly fentanyl, and they're kicking them loose with a card that says, I hope you can get some help. All right. Statewide, here's how it breaks down. Crimes against persons is about 21%. For Gig Harbor, we're about half of that. So that tells me that Gig Harbor is a relatively safe place, remains that way. We like to see that. Of course, we don't like crimes against property. We don't like any crime, but our violent crime rate is a lot lower. When we put this all in the big machine and shake it up, we come out with our crime rate went down 3.4% this year. That seems like good news, and I'd love to stop right here, but this needs some context. First of all, crimes per thousand is not a good metric for Gig Harbor because we have such a daily influx of people. Our rate did go down again from 2020 levels, but we're ahead of the state average and Pierce County, which of course is largely unincorporated. But as our population increases, as it has year to year, our crime rate is naturally going to go down. That ratio will change. Here's our crime rate as opposed to all of the other incorporated cities in Pierce County. And you'll see that we float just above the state average, right? Last year, we were up a little bit higher than that. We were up by Sumner. So we've come down a bit. But, you know, I tend to think that Gig Harbor has more of a Bonnie Lake, Edgewood feel to it. I don't even think that we're above the state average crime-wise. It's because we're dealing with that daily influx of people. These numbers are based on a population of 11,000 and something. And if we even statistically lowered this to match the state crime rate, it would be like servicing a much larger sleeping population of over 13,000. So again, what I'd look at too is our Group A crimes. I want to see how many crimes per year are being reported. And hey, good news, it's going down, but we're not factoring in some of those fraud cases and those drug possession cases. So that's artificially moving that number down this year. Still a good trend, but there's a reason for it. We are doing a very good job of clearing our cases, clearing them with arrest, we're solving them, even unfounded as a clearance if we can show that something's not happened. So we're well above the state average, and we're doing some internal process review to increase that even more. We should be at the top of the heap next year. That's how many people we've arrested just in the year 2021. So Group B offenses, these are the kind of the lesser offenses, although, you know, you could argue that DUI is a more serious offense. But when I take a look at those, what leads the way is generally our criminal traffic citations, or driving with a suspended license. That's why that number is up to 78. DUI is also there, although that DUI number is fairly low for our jurisdiction. Property value, $1.5 million stolen this year. In 2020, it was only 440,000. This is one of the more significant things I'm going to tell you tonight. This tells us that theft is really, really rampant, and the genie's out of the bottle. We're trying to put it back in. So our takeaways from the crime report here are statistically we're down. But if we were to add back in the drug possession cases from the preceding year, some fraud cases and burglary arrests, that would be 112 cases alone, and that would make our crime increase by 9% per capita. All right. On-view arrests were down. Some of the lingering effects of 2021, our cops were handcuffed, if you will, for part of the year. So those on-view arrests were down. Retail theft is really bad, and vehicle theft is nuts right now. Right now, I'll pause a moment and tell you that the numbers would be worse if we weren't being pretty active with our theft deterrence. In other words, you can probably remember last year, I was kind of tossing around the notion of an ordinance to maybe shift some of the onus on the theft back to the businesses themselves, particularly the corporately owned stores, to help us more. And there were some problems with that, the long story there, but what we've done is implemented a business check program. Most corporate stores prohibit their employees from calling when they see a shoplift in progress. I can't understand that, but they have their reasons for doing that, litigation and things like that. So what we've done is we've told the employees, and when we set it up with our dispatchers, that any employee can pick up the phone, dial 911, and say, hey, this is Kelly, and I'm at the ABC store. I would like a business check. They're not divulging what's going on. They're not identifying any persons. They're not violating their corporate policies. But that's a signal to the officer that something is amiss and something's going on at that store. And this has been very, very effective. It doesn't show up in our crime stats, but on a daily basis, we're deterring those shoplifts. People are abandoning shopping carts full of merchandise. They're putting things back. And they're leaving the store and hopefully leaving the area with us watching. So that's been pretty effective, and we're going to continue to try to promote that. Our case clearance rate is above average, and again, it should increase even further. We're doing some good things with our records flow and our case management. And then Gig Harbors like servicing a much larger daytime population. We got to keep that in mind, that we nearly double in size during the day. So one thing I'm going to do this year is I'm going to add in a quick presentation on professional standards. Okay, this is in the interest of full transparency for our police department. We want people to know how we operate, not just what the net effect is. So these are basically a summary of some of our complaints and some of the way we do business. So we'll start with complaints. We can receive citizen complaints, or we can initiate internal investigations, right? We do accept anonymous complaints. Not all police departments do that, but we will. Minor complaints, we just do an internal investigation or even a supervisory review, say a poor demeanor from one of our officers on a traffic stop. That would be probably handled at the sergeant or the lieutenant level. But major complaints, we would open up a formal internal investigation. And if it's serious enough, if the potential is serious enough, we would bring in an outside agency to be an impartial investigator of that conduct. Our complaints are resolved in one of four ways. They're sustained, either it happened. Not sustained, meaning could have happened, but we don't have enough information either way. Unfounded, meaning we categorically can say this never happened. Or they're exonerated, meaning the conduct alleged did happen, but there was a reason for it and it makes sense. So with that in mind, last year we had a whopping 2 complaints for our police department, and both of those were unfounded. We looked into them very thoroughly. We keep all the records of that, and very proud of how our officers act on the street. They're holding themselves to a very high standard. So let's talk about use of force. You can read that lengthy definition, but basically when we're making somebody do something by using any degree of force, and again, force could be me taking you by the arm, right? That's a level of force. We record that. We keep records of that. One thing that I've asterisked there is draw and direct. That means when we actually aim a firearm at somebody and command them to do something, that doesn't meet the definition of force, but we track that anyway. We want to know what's happening in that regard. Deadly force, of course, is something no officer wants to get involved with, but a kind of a last resort use of force. Last year, out of 11,000 calls for service, we had 5 use of force incidents, okay? 4.045 thousandths of the time our officers have to use force. What kind of force did they use? Well, the primary thing that they would, primary level of force would be the first tactic they employ. And physical controls are those handholds, the taking you by the arm, maybe taking you to the ground to handcuff you, something like that. We had that happen only 4 times in 2021. And then that firearm draw and direct that I talked about, only 1 time, for a total of 5 incidents. Now, not all the time did those primary tactics work. So the officer shifted to a secondary type. And you can see that we used a taser once and a firearm draw and direct when a physical control didn't work. So that looks like 7, it's really 5 incidents where 7 types of use of force was employed. Shocking that a lot of times people are under the influence of alcohol or drugs and not necessarily cooperative. And sometimes people are in crisis too. So we have to sometimes use force to deal with those situations, but we try to use that at the lowest possible level. Our use of force, we analyze that by race and by gender. And I see nothing on this chart that it brings any cause for alarm to me, and hopefully not you as well. We did have one very minor injury reported from a suspect, but not even enough to call an aid car to the scene. For our enforcement, we have criminal traffic citations and non-criminal traffic citations like shoplifting or littering or something like that. We break that down by race too, and we analyze that. Same can be said for our traffic infractions. These are speeding tickets or things like that. So I see nothing here that looks well out of bounds. The statistical sample is fairly small in some of these ethnic groups, but this is something that we monitor year to year. Police pursuits, we've broken this down to before the July 1st legislation and after. And our total number of pursuits, we don't have that many. Even when we had a lot more latitude to engage in pursuits, we don't want to chase people. That's dangerous. Officers and the public stand a good chance of getting hurt in those. But you can see that we've engaged in 7 for the year. All were within policy. A couple of them ended with the suspect crashing on their own. One of them ended with them and a suspect ramming a police car. The precipitating offense, the things that lead up to those, you can see traffic violations before the new legislation we pursued for a while. I don't think we captured that particular person, but we're pretty discreet in what we choose to chase a car for. We recognize the dangers out there. So vehicle collisions outside of even pursuits, we had 3, all of them were caused by other drivers. You'll remember the one impaired driver that crossed the center line and totaled one of our police cars. The car looked terrible, and thankfully the officer was not seriously injured at all. So our takeaways from our from our professional standards report, we have very few citizen complaints, and of the couple that we had last year, none were sustained. I'm very proud to say that that's at least 8 years that we've gone without a sustained citizen complaint. That's remarkable, even for a department our size. Very few use of force incidents. Our officers are doing a very good job with their verbal skills, with de-escalation, and again, only 1 minor injury, almost no use of force incidents for us. And then enforcement by gender and race shows real no bias trends. It's something we will keep an eye on and publish to the public. And we have very few pursuits or collisions, which is also remarkable because we're being asked to drive in certain manners that put us in potential to be involved in collisions sometimes. So officers using pretty good discretion there. Can't say enough good about how our officers are performing on the street. So with those 2 reports blended into one, I am available for questions.
Thank you so much, Chief Busey. Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you, Chief. I wanted to ask how we are doing on staffing.
Great question. And I'm happy to report that an officer that left us last November has decided that that was not the thing to do. And he applied with the Civil Service Commission to become reinstated. We gladly did that. We did another background investigation on him. And he starts with us on August 24th. Eddie Dominguez is his name. Great officer.
So happy to have him back.
That will bring us back to fully answer your question, Councilmember Denson. That'll bring us to our budgeted allotment of 21 officers. So that's a magic number for us.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, Chief, you were very quick to compliment your officers, but that doesn't happen. Pardon me, I have a sore throat. That doesn't happen without really good leadership. And I think the entire city and community owe you a great deal of thanks for everything you've done.
Thank you for the kind words. All right, and we will be publishing this on our social media platforms in the next day or 2. So that report will be available to all.
Thank you. Councilmember Denson, did you have something to add?
Yeah, sorry, one more question. This might be for City Administrator Ms. Knutson. In the past, we've had an Intergovernmental Affairs Committee that's come up with our legislative agenda. How are we going to be handling that this year? Because Chief Busey mentioned a couple items that he might want included on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Denson. And for sure, we want to make sure that we have on our legislative agenda the items that Chief Busey said. We will be meeting with the council in a work session on the 18th of August with our local lobbyists or state lobbyists, and going over a general general education of what that means for our new council members, but also describing the calendar process for our legislative agenda. And that will be taking place in September and October in work sessions rather than in the committees.
Thank you so much, Katrina. And Chief Busey, thank you again for your report. I know the public will be very happy to be able to view that on your Facebook page and Twitter accounts. And I'm so proud of our department. I got to hang out with them at National Night Out last Tuesday night, and it was so much fun to just get to know them a little bit better and goof off and take pictures. And I had a great t-shirt that our wonderful HR assistant bought for me. And now apparently we're going to be selling them next year because everybody wanted one. It's a coolest shirt, and it says, I love Gig Harbor PD on the back of it. And so I had at least 20 people stop me and say, where can I get one of those t-shirts? Is there a booth around here somewhere? So we're going to figure out how to have those next year. And it was so neat. My husband was there with me, and he was hanging out with some of the volunteer officers and chatting it up. And it was just so nice to be down there and showing our support and have so many people shaking their hands and thanking them for their service. And it was just, it was very heartwarming. I can't wait for next year. So we're going to go bigger next year. It was a little smaller coming out of COVID, but we've got some really fun ideas for next year. So thank you, Kelly, for.
Mayor, I appreciate your support and that of the council too. This is a wonderful city. We've got a lot of community support, and it's nice to have you guys behind us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Well, that was part of my mayor's report, was National Night Out. I wanted to let you all know that that was last week. Also, we had Gin Creek, and is it Mark Hurwitz and Gin Creek. They were great. And then tomorrow night we have the Beatniks. So the road will be closed again between Harborview, or between Rosedale and Pioneer on Harborview for the Beatniks. And that's closed from 3 to 9 p.m. Concert starts at 6 o'clock. And I know there will be so many boaters and paddleboarders and kayakers in the water to watch this concert. So come on down. We're getting to the end of our Summer Sounds concert series, and it's been so much fun. So the last thing that I wanted to say is I got to meet a couple more of our new hires today that are doing their training. And I'm so proud of our HR team as well. They are onboarding like crazy, and it's just so fabulous. And our IT department is doing so great, getting them all on board as well. And so thank you to all of our staff, directors, and everyone that's been involved in getting some really great new people at the city. So super excited to meet all these new folks and just watch them spread their wings and do a great job. So super excited for our new people. And so I will now go to City Administrator Knudsen for her report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Just wanted to give a brief update on the phase 3 of the North Creek Conservation Area. I did send an email to you all that unfortunately we will not be receiving the funding from Pierce County for the Opportunity Fund. And because we won't be receiving that money, staff will be proceeding with the purchase consistent with the direction provided to staff by council in June. That we had our second amendment to the purchase and sale agreement, which increased our earnest money and also removed the contingency for the conservation money. So wanted to provide council that update that we will be proceeding forward even without the grant funding, consistent with council's direction. And so that total, I believe, will be 950,000 less the 50,000 from the Gig Harbor Land Conservation Fund. And we very much appreciate the Gig Harbor Land and Conservation Fund for partnering with us on this property purchase. And as we proceed, we will notify council as it moves forward, and definitely celebrate this as well as our other purchases. We will also be looking at a conservation easement, and we can talk about this with council in a work session upcoming. But with the Opportunity Fund, we would have had to approve and place on the property a conservation easement, stating that this is for conservation purposes with limited development. And I think that it would be appropriate for us to do that in this instance as well, since that is the intention of the purchase. And so be working with this city attorney to draft up something for council's consideration. And of course, we would come to you for approval of that prior to reporting that document. And if council members have questions about this at all, please feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to explain more of the details. Lastly, I wanted to just shout out to Dave Fishbaugh, Chuck and Adam Blodgett. They are the union representatives for all of our staff here besides the police. We had a wonderful meeting with them today that was centered around what we can do, ideas that staff had for retention and making the workplace an even better workplace for the staff to be in. And they all had wonderful ideas that we jotted down, and we'll be bringing those forward as as time allows, I will say. And that goes hand in hand with the employee survey that we will be getting out to staff in September. And so with the employee survey, as well as this feedback loop from staff, we're really looking forward to putting together a full retention plan so that we can retain the staff that we have, as well as obviously recruiting very highly qualified individuals to join our team when those instances arise. And again, if you have questions about that, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we are proceeding down that route. And thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your hard work. So we will move on to the public comment portion of our agenda on non-agenda items. Josh, were there any written comments received?
No written comments this evening.
Okay, so thank you to all that are joining us online this evening. You can press the *9 button on your phone and *6 to unmute yourself, and you will have 3 minutes. Do we have our timer tonight, Josh, our online timer?
Having a little bit of difficulty getting it to pull up, so I mean,
Okay,
see if I can get it working as we go.
I might be able to use one as well. Or I'll just try to use the clock on my computer screen. I see one hand raised. Do you want me to wait for a moment, Josh, till you can?
Yeah, give me just one more second. I think it's joining. It's having some trouble onboarding
Okay.
here.
No worries.
Mayor, I have a timer ready to go if you'd like to start.
Okay, maybe we will do that, and then we'll try to get the other one going as well. Okay, so caller ending 874, if you would please state your full name and home address for the record, please, and you will, again, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Mayor Markley?
Yes,
And can the council as well?
I'm seeing head nods, yes.
Okay, so yes, this is Thomas Wick. I'm at 4704 Hunt Street Northwest in Gig Harbor. And tonight I would like to read an email I sent to the city of Gig Harbor at 3:42 p.m. that I did not get a response to. I said, "Good afternoon, Mayor Markley," and to all those copied. As you know, it has been my hope the city attorney and myself could engage in mediation so that we could discuss the city's refusal to complete the request for public records dated September 25th, 2020, and the drainage deficits on downhill Pierce County properties. However, I never did hear from him, hence this outreach. The city confirmed there were thousands of public records withheld for a total of 663 days in violation of the Public Records Act, PRA. The clock was stopped at 663 days, given that is when the city confirmed they would never complete the request for public records dated September 25th, 2020. Refunding the $300 advance payment I made to acquire them, yet again, confirmed this. Regarding Ordinance 1465, if I was on the city council and if there was a compelling need for this ordinance, I may have voted to approve it. However, I would have insisted that before it went into effect, all pending incomplete requests for public records would first have to be processed and completed. Not doing so would appear as though the city passed an ordinance to delay the completion of a specific request for public records, absent the ill consequences for doing so. Below is a clip from an email received from the city, a statement that confirms the request for public records dated September 25th, 2020 was not abandoned at all. Verbally, during multiple city council meetings, which were recorded, I repeatedly raised objections to the city's refusal to process and complete this request for public records verbally. Each time I did so, I advanced that same request for public records over and over again. Not only did I repeatedly voice my objection to the city's refusal to process and complete this request for public records, I deposited numerous checks in the city's Dropbox to pay for it, the last one being for $8,000. It remained sealed in the envelope within which the city mailed it back in. Here's the question to ponder. Given the city accepts requests for public records, I'm going to skip to what I was sent by the city of Gig Harbor. A request to review records in person constitutes a request for public records. Public records requests are accepted verbally, by email, by using our records request form, or by any other method anyone chooses to make a request. We prefer that people use the form, but that is not a requirement. In closing, I'm again respectfully requesting that you or your designated representative direct the city attorney to contact me at his earliest convenience so that we can schedule mediation, a process that promotes open, honest dialogue in a venue that assures confidentiality. This is a no risk to either party opportunity, short of litigation, to explore options to attain lawful resolutions and ultimately to attain closure. The discussion topics are the request of public records dated September 25th, 2020, and the drainage deficit on downhill Pierce County properties. Response by close of business today would be most appreciated. Respectfully, Thomas W., Downhill, Pierce County property owner. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wick. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on a non-agenda item? And again, you can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen or *9 on your phone. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period on non-agenda items. We have no old business items tonight, so we will move right on to our new business item number 1, which is a public hearing for first reading and adoption of ordinance 1494, vacating a portion of Hall Street. And the suggested motion is to move to approve ordinance 1494. This report comes to you from our Public Works Director, Jeff Langhelm. Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm going to share with you just an image of where we're talking about for this portion of Hall Street right-of-way vacation. Let's see. Too many maps up. Okay. So this is the area we're talking about here. Hall Street is actually a roadway that is not a named roadway in our city streets. It's just roadway that was named as part of the Artina plat from 1890. And then I'm going to show you more detail of the actual document that was provided by the surveyor. So zooming into that same area, this is the area that's in the diagonal hatch pattern of the vacation request. This is a request by the adjacent property owner to the north to vacate a portion of Hall Street in accordance with our non-user statute section of code. We did appropriately set the public hearing associated with tonight's council meeting based on our July 11th council meeting and resolution adopted as 1254. There is a portion as showing in this map in the double hatched area. It's about 20 feet of the 30 feet that we're requesting an easement for storm line access, sewer access, water line access. And then we did open a portion of Hall Street. It's the Hammerhead emergency turnaround portion of Milton Avenue, the very south end of this Milton Avenue access from Bernhardsen. So that area we're not proposing we vacate. So that's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. We are asking for it to be adopted on first reading since it is a non-user statute right-of-way vacation.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I got a hoarse voice today too. A question, once we vacate that property, what can the owner then do with it? Can they fence it off and make it so there's no access to it? Does it become their private property? And then secondly, since we have an easement running through there for various utilities, will that restrict what the owners then can do with that lot and on the area where it's the easement is?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Henderson. Yes, that portion of the right of way, once vacated, will become their property, the adjacent property owner's property. They can fence it off. But there, on the easement area, that 20-foot wide swath, that will have restrictions on it. They cannot build on it. They cannot do anything that will disturb our utilities or hamper our access to our utilities. So, I mean, they could plant grass on it, or, you know, put some sort of low-level recreation on it, chairs, you name it, something like that. But they can't build any structures on it.
Okay, could they block it off though for, I guess what I'm getting at is, do we know if that piece of property, people have been using that over the years? Are there like trails that go through there just because to get from one point to the other?
No, there's no trails through there.
Okay.
It's a very
Alright.
steep section of roadway
Okay.
or of right of way.
Okay, so essentially it doesn't look like it was ever really used much at all.
Correct. The only portion that we have used, it will either be encumbered by the easement or maintained as public right of way for the turnaround. Everything
Okay,
else
great.
has not been used.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 1494 on the first reading tonight.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. I missed that. Was that you, Councilmember Barber? Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. Any other clarifying questions from council? Okay, I will now open up the public hearing on this agenda item. Josh, were there any written comments submitted?
There are no written comments on this hearing.
Okay. In the attendees section, we have caller 874. And again, for those that would like to comment on this agenda item, you can press *9 on your phone. And again, if you would, even if you've done it before, if you please state your full name and home address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Go ahead, caller 874.
Yes, Mayor Markley, this is Thomas Wick again, 4704 Hunt Street. I understand that this ordinance is to facilitate stormwater, an easement for stormwater connection. And so just my concern, it's not so much an objection, is that the city's showing a concern for stormwater, obviously. They're being proactive with respect to a need to address it. So I'm wondering why, and this is directly related to this. I looked at the City of Gig Harbor's stormwater system and their major trunk lines, and Director Langhelm, I'm sure, can speak to this, and I hope he will, and I'm asking him to when I'm done here. But the Scancy Avenue drainage and that 24-inch culvert that discharges onto Pierce County properties is not on the City of Gig Harbor's storm drainage system anywhere. And I've looked at it and tried to find it, and it's not identified by a number, by letters. It's like it's this phantom thing that just doesn't exist. So I guess that's my concern and question is the city is passing an ordinance that allows a stormwater connection and expressing a concern for stormwater, but we've got a major, drainage, the 24-inch line that runs under Scancy Avenue with, it's not even identified. It's not even on the map. So I was just hoping that Director Langhelm could explain why that is. And thank you again, Mayor Markley, for allowing me to speak on this.
Thank you so much. So as you know, we don't answer questions during public comment, but if you'd like to send an email to our city administrator, Katrina Knutson, we can see if we can get some of those questions answered for you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak tonight on this agenda item? Okay, seeing no hands raised, I will close the public hearing. Thank you to those that made comments tonight and for being here with us. And I will turn it over for council deliberation and action. We already have a motion and a second. So unless there are any other questions from council, I will ask all those in favor to say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, council. We will move right along to new business item number 2, which is the first reading and adoption of ordinance 1495, amending the Gig Harbor Municipal Code section 9.20.010 to adopt by reference RCW 9.41.305, prohibiting the open carrying of weapons in municipal buildings. And the suggested motion is move to approve ordinance 1495. And this report also comes to us from our Police Chief Kelly Busey.
And good evening again, Mayor and Council. Thank you. In 2001, the state legislature created a new law prohibiting the open carry of weapons on state capitol grounds and in municipal buildings. Under the definitions of this RCW, the Gig Harbor Civic Center meets the definition of municipal building in the interest of just public safety and employee safety within our facility. In order to enforce this in our municipal court, we would need to adopt this into city code. I'll tell you that we already have adopted RCW 9.41.300, which prohibits carrying of any weapons, even concealed, in and around a courtroom. Now, there's some ambiguity about what parts of our court serve as a courtroom and when, since we have a part-time court. So these laws would a little bit overlap, but it would, I think, be a good move to provide the most obvious security for our employees here.
Great, thank you so much, Chief. Any clarifying questions from council? Councilmember Wood.
Yes, Chief, thanks so much. Thanks for bringing this forward. I have a question about Senate Bill 5038, which also prohibits open carrying in public places. Do we need to put this into our code as well?
Councilmember Wook, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that particular Senate bill or any session law.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Any other clarifying questions? Okay, great. I will open up the public comment on this agenda item. And once again, you can press *9 or the raise hand button on your screen, and you'll press *6 to unmute. Josh, were there any written public comments for this item?
Yep, no written comments for this item.
Okay. So caller number 874, I believe it's Mr. Wick. If you would please again state your full name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, Mayor Markley. You know, I wasn't going to comment on this issue this evening, but you know, it's such a rare situation where I actually agree, unfortunately, with the city. And I was thinking about that when I saw it on your agenda. I was thinking, you know, I could just imagine somebody coming up to the podium and they've got a 9mm strap to their hip and they're upset. They're angry about something. And they're in the Civic Center in front of everybody, and I could see that actually being an act of intimidation. So I guess all I was saying is it's kind of a rarity that I actually agree with what the city does. You all know, but I think this is appropriate because if I was a city council person or the mayor or anybody else in the Civic Center, I'd be maybe a little intimidated. So anyway, that's all I wanted to comment on. Thank you for allowing me to speak on that, Mayor Markley. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak this evening on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment and open it up for council deliberation and action. Councilmember Wook.
Yes, again, thank you so much for bringing this forward, Chief Busey. It's important that we have this. So I move to approve ordinance number 1495.
Second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you so much, council. Moving right along, item number 3 is resolution 1257, rejecting all bids received on Public Works Operations Center Phase 2, the building project. And suggested motion is to move to approve resolution 1257. This report comes again from our Public Works Director, Jeff Langhelm.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, as you saw in your packet for this item, the city has been anticipating construction of this building for quite a while. Our November 2021 estimate for this project was, for the total project, was 3.3 million. Out of that, 2.7 million was for the actual building construction and contingency and sales tax. We put this project out to bid in early June of this year. We weren't receiving bidders, so we extended the bid opening. We received one bidder when we opened bids on July 21st of this year. That bid was for a total of almost $4.9 million. Once you add everything into that for a total project cost, we would have been up closer probably to $5.5 million. And so, as noted in the council bill, since we didn't get any other bids in absence of those other comparable bids, and because of the price, it far exceeds our available budget, we are recommending as staff that we reject all bids through this resolution and then revisit this project later this fall.
Great,
So
thank
happy
you,
to answer
Jeff.
any questions. Yep.
Clarifying questions from council? Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Langhelm, do you have kind of a path forward, which you might want to do? Are you just going to put the same contract out this fall, or do you think there may be some reductions in scope in order to bring it back down again?
Well, we had a conversation with the consultant right after we opened bids about reduction of scope. Two things on that. One, there wasn't a whole lot left. This is a very bare bones building. I mean,
Right.
It's concrete floors, it's open ceilings. We could do some things to make the exterior a little more simplified, but then we'd have to go back to the design review board and go back through land use permitting. And we could reduce the size of the building, but that's not going to benefit us at all in the future. So what we're looking at now is to have a conversation with the consultant, assuming all bids are rejected tonight. We're gonna have that conversation tomorrow morning and look at other options. There were a couple of minor suggestions that they had offered. We'll also possibly talk to a contractor or two about receiving their input on what we could do for interior modifications or reductions. But we do see wholesale lumber prices coming down. We do see other things slowing down. How hopefully we will also be able to average. We're looking to advertise in additional locations to hopefully get the word out a little to a broader audience. So that's our plan.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Any other questions for, yes, Councilmember Rodenberg?
Director Langhelm, is there a way that we can kind of do this in phases where possibly the building gets built, but it's not entirely finished inside, and spread that cost out over several years?
Well, we sort of did that already by doing all the site improvements once and then the building second. We don't see an advantage to bringing in a contractor just to do the framing and exterior and then bring in a separate contractor to do the plumbing in phases and then electrical and phase and then finish work. So we wouldn't suggest that. We would suggest keeping the building as one whole package.
I kind of meant phase in functionality, not necessarily in construction. You know,
Well-
maybe the building is constructed to achieve certain things. Maybe they don't get incorporated as used in that building until we could better afford to put it together.
Let me talk to the consultants about that tomorrow when we meet. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that we could really, we could do like the kitchen area separate for the staff kitchen eating area. But we need to make sure that we have all the locker rooms associated with this. I mean, it's essentially just offices and a locker room and an eating room, lunchroom. So let me talk to the consultant about that tomorrow.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Any other clarifying questions? Katrina?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I just wanted to let you know that Director Langholm and I have talked with the staff that work at our current shop, and we've let them know that this resolution that Jeff has proposed tonight in no way indicates that we are not supportive of a future brand new workspace for them, and that it is in the city's plans, and that they are important, as are all of our staff. And so they were made aware of the resolution tonight and the reasons for that. Just wanted to have that out as part of this discussion.
Thank you for that. I was going to mention the same thing. This is not an easy thing to do. We want this for them so much, but it just could not be justified at that price. So we're really hoping for better success later on. Okay, so if there are no other clarifying questions from council, I will open up the public comment on this agenda item. Josh, were there any public comments submitted for this item?
No written comments for this item.
Okay, great. Those in the attendees wishing to speak, you can push the raise hand button or *9 on your phone, and you'll have 3 minutes. State your name, full name, and home address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Caller 874.
Yes, Mayor Markley, City Council members. Thomas Wick, 4704 Hunt Street again. Question and a concern. So that 24-inch culvert that was there for decades, I want to say almost 50 years, that crossed from north to south under Hunt Street Northwest, that discharges the storm onto our Pierce County properties from the city of Gig Harbor. That was replaced by a private contractor without any bids. And the city informed me of this because I made a records request trying to learn, who, and I was told that there were no bids. So that's city-owned infrastructure. That's the city stormwater drainage system. And I know from my earlier public comment, there's no, like this phantom drainage that it doesn't exist on Gig Harbor's map. But so my question is, and it's something I would ask the council to have maybe a little deliberation on, is why does the city need bids to build a city-owned building if they don't need bids to replace or modify the city's infrastructure, their stormwater management system? So that's the question, that's the concern, and I was hoping the council, actually I was hoping that Director Langhelm personally could answer that question, why that specific work was done without a bid, and it's city-owned infrastructure. Why is it necessary now to get bids to complete a building for the city of Gig Harbor? I think it's a valid question, and I would sincerely appreciate a response. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the attendee section that wishes to speak this evening on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment. And again, just remind our commenters that we don't answer questions directly during the public comment period. But again, if you'd like to reach out to the city with your questions, we will get those answers for you, or do our best to get those answers for you. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is really unfortunate that the bids came in so much over what we were expecting, and it's very unfortunate for staff and everyone involved, but this seems to be the best course of action. So I move to approve resolution 1257.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second. Any other deliberation or comments from council? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, council. And we will move on to our final agenda item of the evening, number 4, professional services contract for HVAC assessment. And the suggested motion is to move to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a professional services contract with McDonald Miller Facility Solutions LLC in an amount not to exceed $94,000 $484. And again, this is our report from Public Works Director Jeff Langhelm.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have been working for a while to look at alternatives to our cooling problem that we're approaching, which is we are using R22 refrigerant in our cooling system here at the Civic Center. That is no longer available for manufacture and distribution in the US. We are, all the infrastructure also has been in place for about 20 years now. It's time to do some repairs to that. The approved budget that was authorized back at the end of 2021 was provided for a minimal approach to that replacement of the cooling system. But the new council's strategic plan has provided some guidance to do above and beyond what was being proposed as part of the 2022 budget. So we asked, based on that strategic plan, for a consultant to provide us with a scope that will give us alternatives to look at and cost estimates, so we can present those to the council and decide which direction and how much money the council feels is appropriate based on climate change and resiliency. So this contract, even though it is over budget, would allow us to take a look at those alternatives and then proceed based on what the preferred alternative is with a design and permitting so that we can proceed on to construction. So that's what this contract before you tonight will provide. And I am here to answer any questions. And we also do have the consultant available and the attendees if you have any specific questions for McDonald Miller.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilmember Wook.
Thank you. Director Langham, where does this money come from?
It's going to come from ending fund balance that we have available to us.
Thank you very much.
Any other clarifying questions from council? Okay, I will open up the public comment for this agenda item. And Josh, were there any written public comments received?
No written comments on this item.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this agenda item? And again, you can push *9 on your phone or the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment and we will move on to council deliberation and action. Is there a motion to approve this professional services contract? Councilmember Wood?
Yes, thank you. I move to approve. I move to approve this contract. I move to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a professional services contract with McDonald Miller Faculty Solutions LLC in an amount not to exceed $94,484.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, one opposed. Any abstain? Okay, motion passes 5-1. Thank you, council. So we will move on to council reports and comments. Okay. Councilmember, who beat you? Councilmember Denson.
I don't know. I think it was at exactly the same time.
Might have been a tie.
I just had a quick one. I just wanted to congratulate the Gig Harbor Fire Department and all the firefighters for the passage of their capital facilities bond during the vote earlier, I guess, last week. So congratulations, and we're excited that they're able to stay safe and keep us safe.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a couple shout outs today. Again, I didn't really say much during the Gig Harbor Waterfront Alliance proclamation, but I'd like to just recognize again the amount of really positive work they do for our city. A lot of people don't even know it, but I'm very thrilled that we're able to provide some more funding for them so they can keep doing the work. The second shout out I'd like to give to is to our city administrator, Knutson. Just hearing how you've been coordinating with city staff to keep them informed in things as mundane as we're rejecting a bid on a new building, I think shows a level of engagement we haven't seen here in the city for quite some time, and I'm thoroughly impressed with that. Keep up the good work. I think that's one way that we keep good employees and recruit good employees as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other reports or comments, we have our announcement of upcoming meetings. Our meeting schedule is attached to this agenda for the study session this Thursday afternoon, the 11th at 2 o'clock. So that is our next meeting this week. We do not have a council meeting the second week in August, but we will be having a special meeting on August 18th, also at 2, I think it's at 2 p.m. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. I don't have it right in front of me. And so also, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, we were able to discuss the phase 3 property purchase. And so we will not be going into executive session this evening. So that item will be removed from the agenda. And so if there is nothing else for the good of the order, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Bye,
meeting
everybody.
adjourned. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great